Hey guys, so this is going to be one of many little clips that I'm trying to put together to document this M3 wagon build. One of the things that I'm trying to do with this M3 wagon build to make it a little bit more special is to integrate and retrofit the SMG system because I actually like it. I like the SMG system. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's interesting technology. I like the way it drives. I've driven them before. I know how to fix them. I know how to maintain them, so I'm not really scared of them. And I think it's just something different. Everybody wants to yank them out and install 6 speeds, and that's great for them. That means there's more parts available for me for my SMG stuff, so more power to them. So one of the things I did was I completely gutted an M3 convertible. It was a 2003 and a half with S54, which is, you'll see right there. Got that pulled apart out of the car, and eventually I'm going to get it turned upside down and get that oil pan off and double check and make sure which rod bolts that I have so I can order all the right stuff. But for tonight, I want to go through the body harness. So not only did I pull the engine out, but I also pulled everything I could, and that included the entire body harness, because why not? It's going to be a lot easier for me to go through all the connectors and pull exactly what I need so that I can try to preserve as much of the original wiring as possible, follow my wiring traces and my pinouts, compare that to the TIS online so I can verify all my wire pin connections are correct. So here is the body harness, this big pile of heavy wires. So I'm actually going to go through that, lay it out there on the floor, and I know which connectors are SMG related. I know all the other connections that it makes to the DSC, to the accelerating yaw sensor, to the DME compartment, to the little control modules for the shifter. So I'm going to follow all those traces, get exactly what I need. That's the mission for tonight. Okay, so I've had some time to uncoil and lay out the body harness, and this is what it looks like. So this is the body harness. It may look a little familiar with some context with the fuse box and the cage that holds the general module and the relays that sits behind the glove box. This is your DSC module on an MK60 car. Wiper motor relay. This is actually the front half of the harness that goes to the headlights and all the front plug connectors. I actually cut those off before I realized I wanted to pull the entire body harness, so I'll reattach whatever wires I need, mainly just for the hood switches and stuff like that. LCM harness, cluster, EWS, throttle pedal. The important stuff that I'm really after are things like this. The DSC, the SMG connector. There's a connector, I just kind of plugged that in there for reference. There's another one here for the shift lockout. And this guy right here for the actual shifter. And basically my plan is to follow these wires, all this stuff, use a razor and cut through all of this tape and do a trace of the wires through the entire harness on what I need, and then everything that should be terminating into the SMG connector plugs right here. So here are the body harness SMG connector plugs right here. This one, this is going to the SMG ECU DME, and then you got the one right here for the MS54 DME body harness connector right there. I don't really care about that one. So there will be wires terminating in here that came from the shift module electronics, and then eventually some of those wires will terminate into the DSC module plug, and then there is a plug over here I'll find it a little bit, for the yaw sensor that sits underneath the seat. And this is right here. This is the grounding block that sits next to the seat under the sill. This is one of the SRS crash sensors. There's one on each side. Here's the SRS plug right here, seat connector. This guy right here, I believe this is the yaw sensor one. I'll find out for sure. But some of these wires, there might be a bus bar somewhere for shared connections. I'll double check my diagrams. But once I get everything pulled, then I can map everything out a little bit better. Another thing I want to get from here is my wagon doesn't have PDC, so this convertible had PDC, so I'm going to grab this module. And you know, the harness for the sensors is pretty easy. There's the sensor connectors all the way back there. That's a standalone sensor harness plug. The other one is integrated into the body harness, so I'll have to trace those wires, and those goes all the way up to the general module, and some of the wires cross over to the front area where the gong is. So it's good to pull all those individually. Some of them terminate in the fuse box, so I'll have to pull those connections so that it makes it a little bit nicer and cleaner when I go to install it into the Touring. Some of the wires may have to be lengthened just because it's a wagon versus a convertible. Convertible keeps it over here underneath the rear seat area. And on the wagon, it's actually in the trunk cargo area under another separate piece. So the wires may work out, but we'll find out later. But as soon as I get the wiring pulled, then I'll come back and show what I have. Cool? All right. Okay, I think it's been about 2 hours. Made some good progress, traced some wires. This is what we're working with right now. So there's everything laid out. And as I showed previously, I showed where some connection points were for things like the shift assembly. So after tracing wires, tracing wires and de-pinning and finding out where everything goes, we are left with this. And so here we have, let's see, SMG hood sensor. So those go directly to the DME, or SMG DME actually. A lot of these actually connect to this guy, which is the body harness SMG connector. And so this right here is the harness for the shift selector assembly and the lockout. Those go directly to this guy right here. So I de-pinned it and marked everything and documented it in a spreadsheet, so I know which wire colors and which pins go to where. So these terminate in here, these terminate in here, and then you have your SMG shift paddles. These go to the clock spring. These also terminate into the body harness connector for the DME, SMG DME. Then you have the speed selection for the button right here. This also goes directly to this. So a lot of what's going to happen is I'm just going to create one custom harness from different points in the chassis. They will all terminate into this guy, which will be in the main DME box to plug in. And so there was a few wires left over, as you can see, and a lot of these are terminating in like the EWS box, and there's a bus bar that has a ton of different wires for different groups. That goes there, and then you got the main fuse box. And a lot of these I won't even use because they'll probably get repinned from the wagon, which is also an automatic transmission, but they have like blue connectors, but they're the same size. And what will happen is I'll just trace some wires there, and I'm pretty sure they have the same wires going to the fuse box to power the automatic transmission ECU or the SMG DME. So there's no need for me to rerun all these wires when they're probably already ran. I'll just need to repin them, and then I'll end up just depinning the whole blue connector because I want to be a little bit more accurate, and I'll repin in this gray connector here. So all in all, it was a good night so far. in trying to trace wires and understanding all the connection points and seeing where everything goes. Anything else that gets connected to the SMG DME for DSC and yaw sensor, those most likely are going to be connected in the CAN bus, which goes through the cluster, I believe, and the main CAN bus system. So those won't have specific wires into the SMG DME. Their SMG DME will probably have wire connection for CAN bus in and out. Same for the DME. They all talk on the same CAN bus network, so they all communicate, and that's how they know what's going on. But I will finish this up tomorrow because I still need to get the PDC stuff wrapped up. So it's getting late here. I'm gonna wrap up, and I guess we will just see you in the next one. All right. Okay, so it's a new day. Wanted to jump back on this wiring stuff. So last night I finished getting all the SMG stuff extracted, labeled, and put together. And that is right here. There's all my wiring for the SMG stuff. Nice little bundle. I'm excited to get started on that. Today I wanted to go ahead and get the PDC stuff because on the M3 wagon, I'll be using the M3 rear bumper that's going to be modified, but it still has the PDC holes, and I want to integrate PDC like I did on my sedan. So in the cars that have PDC from the factory, everything is pretty much integrated into the body harness from the factory. They have body harnesses for cars that have PDC and body harnesses for cars that don't have PDC. And so it's not a complete separate harness like sometimes you're lucky to find with other things like the navigation retrofit, which it is a separate harness on a car that came with it from the factory. And it's pretty easy to take those out in one solid piece pretty easily. So on this body harness here, it's a lot more wired out because I've been picking at it. And at the end of the day, this will go in a box also. Sorry, I have a little, what do you call it? Attention deficit disorder. Here's my other box of body harnesses from previous builds. I love collecting wires and clips and wires and connectors because it's so awesome when you want to make something or fix something and you can just go in your box and grab it. Back to this. We'll go over here, and as you can see, I've already extracted the module, the PDC sensor harness, which is not too bad. It goes out the back of the car with this grommet, and it's taped together with the rear half of the harness. So you just slice the tape and pull out the bundle of wires, and that's pretty easy, cut and dry. The other one right here is a little bit more difficult because it's actually two harnesses in one, and they go to multiple parts of the vehicle. So the body harness part, both of these go together up this main area right here. So you got to cut all the fabric tape, which is really gooey. You can see the hands, pretty gross. You got to cut all that up, slice it up, and start pulling wires, pulling things apart. And for the most part, this bundle right here, well, actually all of it, is in one solid strand all the way until about somewhere here near the fuse box. And that's where it starts spider webbing out to different places. And so that's where you have wires like, this is the gong wire. Well, the gong sits under the kick panel on the driver's side. And that gong wiring has multiple wires. This one right here goes to the cluster. And so you have to trace that and label it and depin it so that you can repin it successfully in the new vehicle. And so all that is you know, nice and labeled here, and I have a paperwork that I've documented and everything. And then you got the gong wire, another gong wire plug. Both of these plug into the gong, by the way. And so the way these wires are, they go all the way across here. They're entangled all the way through. They're not nice and pretty, and you really, it's like a big puzzle. Maybe that's why I like doing it. And a lot of the wiring for the gong goes through various places, like the grounding bus right here. There's various ones of these located all throughout the body harness, grounding blocks, and they get bolted to the car. And then you got your cluster plug. One of the blue wires for the gong came up to the cluster plug. And then all the rest of the wires came over through here. And a lot of the wires end up terminating in these things right here. These are called bus bars. So this is one for the K-bus. Anything that uses the K-bus gets routed to here. So they all share, this is like a network connection. They're all on the same network. So this is the K-bus network connection here. And then you got this one, I believe it's the reverse connection, but I can't remember, I have to look at my schematic. But you know, one of the wires goes to this bus bar connection. Another one goes to, where is it? There's another bus bar connection here. But the final one, what was it? Oh, here's one I was talking about. This is the red and green one. I don't know what that one goes to, but that's another bus bar connection. And then I've had quite a few things go to that, so I had to unplug that. And here is the fuse box dismantled because I needed to get 2 wires from the fuse box. One was, you know, there was a few for the SMG stuff, but these are called fuse leaflets. And so these are pretty easy to install once you get this out. Even in a car that you don't want to mess up, this drops pretty easily from the car with these little side clips, and you can actually pull it down out of the way and work with it. And you can get behind it, and you can plug in, you can slide in fuses like you want to pretty easily. They snap into place. But getting them out is a little bit more difficult. They have a de-pinning tool, and unfortunately, I loaned it out to a friend, and I was pretty frustrated because I really needed it, and I forgot I loaned it out. But they have a de-pinning tool that's like a little fork, and it slides in, and it presses 2 clips, and it releases. Well, I didn't have that, and since I'm not using this fuse box anymore, I went ahead and just broke away some of the plastic, and that lets me release the little fuse leaflet. So number 24 was for PDC, and I pulled that out. And once I got all the wires loose, now as you can see, I didn't have to cut anything. I have this nice PDC retrofit kit that can go into another car. The wiring routing may not be exact as it would be from the factory in the wagon because the PDC module is located in a different area, it has a different body harness. So there may be too much wiring, may not enough wiring, or I may just have to reroute it under the carpet instead of like around the carpet, for example. We'll just see how that goes, but it shouldn't be too hard, I'm not scared of that. But yeah, so I'll get the retrofit PDC, got the SMG. The next thing is on the wagon. It is a very base model car. So that wagon doesn't even have a main switch center panel, the little button panel under the radio that has like your heated seats and sport button, DSC and all that stuff. All the M3s have that. But a lot of the non-Ms, the very base model, they don't have that. They have the individual buttons for specific things. Well, in the wagon, it only has one button for DSC, and that's it. And so I want to retrofit the switch bar, you have to, because I want to add the heated seats, the hi-fi system, and the sport button, and it looks cleaner that way. So I'll have to, where is it? Let's see if I can find it. It's in here somewhere. See, there's lots of different wiring harnesses here. Like here's the passenger seat wiring right there. SRS. Oh, here it is, right here. So here is the switch center plug. And so a lot of these wires, mainly like this big one right here, this red and purple, that goes to the fuse box. So this one is actually routed all the way through the body harness to the fuse box. So I'll trace that and depin that, and then like wires like these green with the yellow stripe or green with a purple stripe, those are for the passenger and driver heated seat power. And then there's other small wires like the K-bus wire. Then there's the temperature signal wire for heated seats, because there's 3 wires for heated seats: power, signal, and ground. And the ground gets routed to the grounding block bars, which are on the sides of the car, underneath the carpet. So that'll be my next thing. Go ahead and depinning the switch panel bus so that I can get that ready to go. So there will be a lot of retrofitting into the M3 wagon to get it to be up to spec on wiring. Hope that was fun, and I'll see you in the next one. I think this is the last wiring that I need to do, or extraction. So for the last clip I did, I said that I was going to pull out the wiring for the switch panel, because my wagon is a very base model wagon. And of course, so my base model wagon only has the large button for DSC, and that's it. No heated seats, no hi-fi, no sport button, no TPMS or anything, no switch panel. And in those cars, there's no wiring to the K-bus for the switch panel or the fuse box. So since I have the whole M3 body harness, which I've shown before, it was a good opportunity for me to go ahead and get what I needed to retrofit it into the wagon. So what we have now is I've got even more wiring pulled out. I think I've pretty much destroyed this fuse box, getting what I need out of it. And go over here, I have a box full of wiring, labeled and organized. So here's the PDC stuff that we talked about earlier. Here's the SMG stuff. We'll go and pull this stuff out. All right, so here is the last bit of the wiring that I needed. So this is the switch panel wiring. This is what normally plugs into the back of the switch panel. There's 2 plugs. This large one houses a lot of wiring for all the buttons, for the individual buttons. This one had extra wires that I did not need for the convertible up and down buttons, so I went ahead and depinned those and removed them, and I didn't even extract those. So I pulled them out of here. So the only wires in here now are for sport button, TPMS, DSC, both left and right side heated seat activation and temperature signal wires. And that's all this wiring right here. And I've traced it, and I pulled each pin connection out individually. There was a lot of wiring going to different places. The tricky ones were getting the wiring going to the DME connector and to the DSC connector, which is normally in the engine. Those are pretty easy to route though, once you are in a car with the carpet pulled and all that stuff. And so when I work on the wagon, since I have to change out the entire interior anyways, the whole carpet has to be pulled, dash has to be pulled. So I'll have all the wiring exposed, so it'll be fairly easy for me to route the wires how I need it, to the fuse box and to all the places. And so that's what this is. This has all the wires I need to go to heated seats. I have the entire wire length going to the sport button with the proper terminate connections with these little pins. Sport button, DSC, hi-fi. It was not in this car. There was no hi-fi button in this car. The wagon doesn't have hi-fi, so there will be an extra button on the switch panel, but it won't do anything. And I don't have HK sound anyway, so it doesn't even matter. These are the left and right wires for the grounding cable for the heated seats. So each one of these, there's one on each side, the driver and the passenger side. One goes from the seat connector under the carpet, and each one terminates into a grounding block on the left and right side of the car. So I got those 2. So it's nice to be able to get all this wiring without having to cut and crimp connectors or buy connectors from BMW. I have it all. As long as you take your time you can get everything you need at the proper length and the proper connections as they're supposed to be, which is nice. So I got a lot of wiring, which is awesome. Go ahead and put that back in here. All my SMG wiring. I can clean up all the nasty junk that I cut out, and I can go ahead and roll this up and put it into another box for a rainy day if I ever need anything else. So I believe the next step will be working on the S54. Next step will be getting it pulled out into the floor, drain every ounce of fluid I can, turn it upside down. I'll have a drip pan somewhere that I'll put underneath so that it can catch all the fluids. That way I can pull the oil pan off and check the rod bearing bolts, make sure which one I have, and then start ordering parts probably on FCP Euro and get what I need. But that'll be in another video. All right.